look skinny.
It's good.
All right.
When I was involved back in the early 70s as a high school student and then part of college days, I don't ever recall 5 pillars. I know that we were pretty much kind of flying by the seat of our pants. The Icthus pillar would say that, you know, devotion is primary, and I would say it this way, that the intimacy with Christ is the absolute first priority and the essential piece of anybody who is a follower of Christ.
When I look at the list of the things that characterize the Icthus ministry and the pillars that made it so powerful as a ministry, was the one that stood out to me was the notion of devotion coming first. That's a really important and critical commitment to make, not just personally, but as a community, because I think so often we do our devotional life on our own, yet I don't think that's ever what God intended. I think spiritual practices are meant to be lived in community, and Icthus made that possible.
Devotion comes first is one of the pillars, and so I was kind of into having quiet times. So I got nicknamed, get this, Righteous Rough. Now that's a burden that I have had to, have all the rest of my life. Righteous Rough. How would you like to be named Righteous Rough?
Bob really influenced my ministry. And I've used this many times, Bob. And it was really in a meeting we were in with youth staff. And you were trying to figure out how to do college ministry. And Bob goes, well, you just pray, you walk, and you go to the library.
Yeah, we were starting the UMKC Icthus.
But I thought, I use that model in practically everything I've done in ministry. So when I want to find leaders at the church, I pray, I walk, and I go to Wednesday night dinners, and I pray for leaders, and I find them. I wanted to start a mom's ministry. I pray, I walk, and then I go to the park and I look for moms. And so I've read many, many models and seen many models on how to start ministry, but I still remember Bob's model, which is pray, walk, and go. Go wherever you need and let God lead you. Again, it's that whole idea of just trusting that God.
I mean, one guy made you.
Yeah.
I mean, he was nice about it. Guy. He was nice about it, but he was unrelenting.
Yeah.
So it was well, you know, this is really a good thing, but you really got to do it.
Yeah.
And me and Steve Smalley would go there, and we would just go down this prayer list, and then he would make us have our quiet time. And I remember one time, Bob and Steve came to me. It was like an intervention.
Right.
It was an intervention. They sent me down, and I said, okay, what's going on here? And it was a confrontation. And they said, me and Steve have been praying, that's what Bob said, that you would get a vision for prayer and Bible study. Because I loved meetings, but I didn't like prayer and Bible study. I go to meetings every night. I didn't like prayer and Bible study. And I tell this story for years.
Yeah.
And that he was burdened that I wouldn't do prayer and Bible study. And so I looked at Bob and I said, okay, and I repented. I said, I'll start it.
Yeah.
And I did it reluctantly. And I look back and I say, thank you, Bob Lehleitner. Now I got a whole full-time job of prayer and Bible study. So yeah. I kind of blame that on Bob Lehleitner in the most gracious way.
I'm sure, like anyone, you go, I got this foundation through the Icthus House, so devotion is just a normal thing, spending time with Jesus.
It was normative, yes.
Do you now, many years later, do you have that sense? Are there days that you go, I don't want to do that anymore?
Lots of times. Yeah, I do. But the thing I have now that I didn't have then, I have two things. I have the history of knowing its value.
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't have it then. And I have the history of enjoyable times with God.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean every day is, but at least I have the hope today might be.
Yeah.
You know, back in the early days, I never had any enjoyable times, and I had no history of knowing it was valuable.
Right.
But if you stay with it, you get both of those things. And
Yeah.
so I have boring prayer times a lot of times, but I always know it might be special today.
Devotion comes first. I was sitting in a 6th grade Genesis class, and Bob was teaching about communion. And it was one of my favorite teachings that Bob ever did, because at the very end, he was kind of teaching kids how we do communion. And he said, look, when you take the bread and you dip it into the cup, never just shove it in your mouth, no matter how hungry you are. You need to take it back to your seat, and you need to sit there, and you need to look at it. And you need to ask God, hey, what's going on with this? What is this about? I need your help in understanding this. And I love that. But again, pillars of Icthus, devotion comes first. You know, you need to, before you do anything, before you eat communion, before you teach, before you go hang out, you need to sit and be with God. You need to ask him, hey, I need to know you more right now in this moment before I go out and try to know anyone else. One of my favorites.
I'd never been to a church where it was all about Jesus and it was all about building his kingdom.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, we're trying to video out here.